Is that right?
Correct.
And did you see any signs of that?
No.
Now, you were asked a number of questions by Mr. Baez during cross-examination about Rule 203 or 205. I'm sorry, you recall those questions?
Yes.
Can I approach witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Specifically, Sergeant Detective Duff, Attorney Baez asked you about Section 15.
I'm sorry, but can I see what Mr. Hagan showed me?
So I believe on cross-examination, Mr. Baez read to you a portion of a sentence stating evidence shall only be removed after being photographed and latent print processing has been completed. Is that what he read to you?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, and is that part of a larger sentence and a sentence before that on Section 15?
Yes.
And does the beginning of Section 15 start off with whenever possible, all vehicles would be processed at the crime scene?
Yes. Whenever possible, all vehicles will be processed at the crime scene.
And relative to the question about Section 15, as far as not removing the vehicle until after it is photographed and latent print processing has been completed, was the vehicle photographed before it was removed from the scene?
Yes.
Latent print processing, Sergeant Detective, was there ever latent print processing of the vehicle done at all?
No.
So that was not in violation of Section 15, is that correct?
Correct.
And just relative to whether or not Section 15 or any part of Rule 205 is a violation, I believe Mr. Baez asked you questions about the use of the word shall. You recall those questions?
Yes.
Just referring you back to the very beginning of Section 1 of Rule 205, death investigation. First in the beginning paragraph, sir, what does it indicate as far as who is in charge by statute of all death investigations?
The Suffolk County District Attorney, by statute, is in charge of all death investigations conducted in the County of Suffolk.
And I just call your attention to the second part of the very first sentence of Section 1, starting with the. Can you read that portion?
Yes. The following procedures shall serve as a guide to the responding officer and investigator to be followed in all cases. These guidelines are to be construed in a general sense.
And finally, Sergeant Detective, you were asked a number of questions by Mr. Baez about the glass that was not taken as evidence from the scene. Is that correct?
Correct.
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I've zoomed in on what has been entered as exhibit number 62, photograph number 11. Is this the glass that you were answering the questions from Mr. Baez in regards to?
Yes.
And is it fair to state there's countless tiny, tiny pieces of broken glass?
Yes.
And there's no other area of glass on the other side of the car or any larger pieces of glass that you saw at the scene, is it?
No.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
So you searched that wall during the 4 minutes that you did the line search?
No, sir.
Okay, so you should have something in your report that states where you searched that wall, right?
I don't believe I noted it in my report. I do recall being at the scene with Detective McIsaac and looking at the vehicle. It appeared that the projectiles went from the passenger side towards the driver's side, and the backstop would have been that wall, so we examined it, and we did not find any evidence.
And of course, you're trained, and you know you're a sergeant detective, that you're supposed to document everything that you do at a crime scene, right?
Yes.
And according to you, you searched that wall. Right?
Yes.
But yet you did not document that in your report.
It's not in my report, no.
Okay. Now, you talked about whenever possible in the regulations, right?
Yes.
It was possible for the evidence, prior to the evidence being removed, that photographs should have been taken.
They were taken.
Correct. Of the bodies?
We could not go in the car without a search warrant, sir.
Okay. We've gone over that, but it was possible for you to take photographs, was it not?
We did take photographs, sir.
It was possible for you to take the sheets off.
No, sir.
Hear me out, please. I'm not finished with the question. It's possible for you to push back the media, correct? You testified already. to
Yes.
that. Okay. It was possible for you to get privacy screens, correct?
Yes.
And it was possible for you to remove those sheets and photograph the bodies, correct?
Not without a search warrant, sir. We couldn't enter the vehicle and start searching for evidence
I
without a
asked you
search
if you
warrant.
entered the vehicle, sir. I asked you if it was possible to photograph the bodies. You can do that from the outside, can you not?
No, sir.
The bodies were accessed with the sheets prior, correct?
I don't know what you mean by accessed.
Somebody accessed the scene, the car, to place the sheets over the body, right?
No, you may answer.
There were sheets on the body when I got there.
Yeah. So they were accessed, correct?
For the placement of the sheets on the body, yes, not for a search.
We've been over this. I'm just going to clarify this point. Medical aid was rendered, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Subsequent to that happening, someone entered the car and placed sheets over the body.
Somebody did that.
And prior to doing that, it was possible for photographs to be taken.
No, sir, the photographers weren't on scene yet, I don't believe.
It could have been preserved for you to photograph, right?
No, if the sheets weren't on the body, you could have taken photographs of the bodies, I take it.
If the sheets were not on the bodies, we would have been able to take photographs of them, yes.
Now, sir, no one asked you if you had taken latent prints of the photo of the car, correct? You were not asked, why didn't you take latent prints for the car?
No,
Okay, because that's not an issue, right?
apparently not.
Okay. Now, this was a shooting case, correct?
Yes.
And the only thing that would be relevant, well, let me strike that. One of the things that would be relevant in a shooting case is perhaps gunshot residue.
Objection beyond scope.
It's not beyond the scope. It's directly related to counsel's question.
Well, it isn't, but I will allow it.
I'm not sure what you refer to as gunshot residue on.
You don't
On
know
a
what
person?
gunshot residue is? Is that your testimony today, sir?
No, sir, I'm asking you to clarify your question.
Did you instruct anyone to perform a test for gunshot residue in that vehicle?
No.
Now, Mr. Hagan referred the tiny pieces of glass there. Are you aware of that?
He referred to the glass, the broken glass, yes.
And he mentioned a countless number of pieces of glass, right?
I'm not sure the exact word he used, but yes, that sounds correct.
It's not too much trouble to pick up that glass, is it, sir?
I don't know what you mean by trouble.
It's not it's not a bother to you, sir, to pick up those pieces of glass, is it, sir?
Is it physically possible? Yes, we
Okay.
could possibly do that, yes.
And nothing's more important than a homicide case, correct?
No, overruled.
Homicide cases are important.
And nothing's more important than a double homicide case, correct, sir?
Well, that would make it more important than a homicide case. It's an important case.
It was
Put a
an-
question.
Yes. So, given that situation, sir, did you not think it was worth the trouble for someone to get on their hands and knees and pick up that glass?
It wasn't a matter of trouble, sir. It was what probative value would tiny shards of glass add to the case.
And it's your testimony here today in front of this jury that that glass had zero probative value.
I'm not saying it had zero. What I'm saying is we didn't see any probative value at the time.
But today you do.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Sergeant. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Michael Griffin.
Becky, stand right here, raise your right hand. Sir, if you solemnly swear that testimony you should give this court and jury and the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Watch your step.
No, thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the court reporter?
My name is Michael Griffin, Griffin.
And are you currently retired?
I am, sir.
Where did you previously work?
Boston Police Department.
How long were you with the Boston Police Department?
29 years.
And during that 29 years, can you briefly describe what areas of units you were assigned to?
In my first 16 years after leaving the academy, I was in patrol work in South Boston, District 6. And my last 14, 15 years, I was at the Crime Scene Response Unit.
And as a member of the Crime Scene Response Unit, sir, did you receive any specialized training in the processing of crime scenes?
Yes.
Can you generally describe what that was, sir?
Basically, first thing we learn is what a fingerprint is and how to identify fingerprints and how to classify fingerprints. And then we were taught the use of cameras, video cameras, how to document crime scenes, how to collect evidence and preserve evidence, so on and so forth.
Now, Mr. Griffin, I'm calling your attention now to a particular incident, that being the July 16, 2012 deaths or homicides of Daniel D'Abreu and Safira Furtado that occurred at the intersection of Harold Street and Shaman Avenue in the south end of Boston. At some point after 2:30 in the morning, did you receive a call to respond to that scene?
Yes,
At that time, were you a member of the Crime Scene Response Unit?
I was.
Who was your supervisor
At that time?
at that time
Of the crime scene
of that crime scene?
was Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan.
And at some point, did your actual supervisor for the Crime Scene Response Unit also arrive at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Who was that, sir?
That was Sergeant Detective Daniel Duff.
And Mr. Griffin, is it fair to state that at some point you were directed to take photographs of that crime scene?
Yes,
And did you do so?
yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
And in addition to taking photographs, Mr. Griffin, I keep wanting to call you Officer Griffin, but Mr. Griffin, did you also assist in the marking of pieces of evidence and the placement of rulers next to the evidence before it was photographed?
I did.
And I'm just showing you a photograph, sir. I'm asking if you recognize it, sir.
I do.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of you actually at the crime scene performing some work, appear to be making some markings on something on the ground?
It is.
Your Honor, after the photograph is the next number exhibit.
Without objection. Was it 168?
Just placing exhibit 168 on the screen, sir. That's you at the scene marking some evidence either prior to or during the photography process.
It is.
Now, Mr. Griffin, I'd like to call your attention to a time after the processing of the crime scene and testified that you assisted in, specifically the processing of the BMW that occurred on the same date, July 16th, 2012, but at a later time after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Did you assist in the processing of the BMW, sir?
I did.
First, sir, I'm going to call your attention. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? I'm going to call your attention to what has already been entered in evidence as number 165. Do you recognize the handwriting on that envelope, sir?
I do.
And whose handwriting is that?
That is mine.
And is that one of the items of evidence that you recovered on July 16, 2012 during the processing of the BMW in the exam bay of the Boston Police Department headquarters?
Yes, sir.
And was that an item that was found here at Cone 6, which was in the back seat of that car?
Yes, sir.
And you secured that item, is that correct?
I did?
Did you wear latex gloves or any other protective wear when you recovered it?
Yes.
And what did you do with it when you recovered it?
Well, as you can see, after we recover a piece of evidence, I bring it into the office and create the chain of custody, which is this barcode created in the computer system. And from the moment I pick this up, it starts traveling forward until it ends up here in the courtroom. And every Every place that it stops is documented in the computer.
So simply by running that barcode through the computer, you would know everywhere that item has been, if it's ever been signed out, if it's been taken by anybody. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with this particular item, when you recovered it, made the barcode, put the descriptive information on it, put your initials and other identifying information on the envelope, did you place the item into the envelope, the paper envelope?
This item,
Yes.
yes,
And where did it go from there, sir?
goes to the firearms analysis unit.
The Firearms Analysis Unit is a specialized unit at the Boston Police Department that handles ballistic evidence or firearms evidence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what happened to it after you submitted it to the Firearms Analysis Unit, you cannot say. Is that correct?
That's the first time I've seen it since I collected it.
And when you submitted it to the Firearms Analysis Unit, you didn't have it in this type of plastic bag, did you?
No, it would be in this manila envelope, sealed with my initials and the date.
And when you say sealed, not sealed with plastic, but sealed with some type of tape over the...
They call it evidence tape.
And similarly, Mr. Griffin, calling your attention to what's been entered as exhibit number 164. Ask if you recognize the handwriting on the paper envelope contained therein.
I do?
Whose is that, sir?
That is mine.
Okay, and this is an item that you also recovered during the execution of the search warrant of the BMW on July 16, 2012, and this specifically being item number 3, a copper projectile recovered from behind the driver's seat.
Correct.
And that was recovered by you, sir?
It was.
When it was recovered again, were you using protective gear of some sort, including latex gloves?
Latex gloves, correct.
And what did you do with the item once you recovered it?
Placed, as I explained, placed into the envelope, sealed, initialed, and then entered into the system where it was administered a barcode.
Once again, Mr. Griffin, once you entered this item of evidence into the computer system, placed it in an envelope and sealed it, did you submit it to the Firearms Analysis Unit?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any knowledge as to where it went from there?
First time I've seen it since that day, sir.
And when you submitted it, sir, it was not contained in this type of plastic, is that correct?
No.
And once again, the best of your knowledge, Mr. Griffin, there would be a computer record of everywhere this item has been since you submitted it as evidence.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Griffin, during the course of your search of the car, or I should say you were assisting in the search of the car with other crime scene response unit personnel, did you notice an item of potential evidence in the back seat driver's side elbow rest?
Yes.
May I approach your witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Griffin, I'm going to show you 3 photographs and ask you to look at those and tell me if you recognize them.
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are what we represented as evidence marker 8, and it's a projectile fragment on the rear door handle on driver's side.
Is that the area on the diagram that's marked as the letter P that I'm pointing to here, item number 8?
Correct.
Apologize, Judge. May I stand here with the second?
Yes, certainly.
Right here, item number 8 in the back driver's side door on the armrest there. Is that what we see in those photographs?
That is correct.
And that's a small item that you seized as possible ballistic evidence. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those are 3 photographs of different distances away from that item. Is that
Well,
correct?
I would term them, the first one being what they call a mid-range shot, showing you the door itself. The second one being a close-up, showing the evidence marker still in the frame with the item on the door handle. And then what I would use as an extreme close-up prior to using an evidence ruler, showing you that item where it lays on the armrest itself.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd offer the 3 photographs as described by Mr. Griffin as the next member of the jury.
No objections.
Without objection, they received.
169 for 179.
Mr. Griffin, just placing exhibit number 169 on the screen. Again, does that show the small item that you noticed and determined was potential ballistic evidence?
Yes, sir.
And you marked it with cone number 8, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 170 is what you described as a mid-range shot.
That's a close-up with the
Close-up.
cone still in.
And finally, exhibit 171. What is that? That we
That's
see?
what I would call an extreme close-up.
And the item that we've seen in exhibits 169 through 171, Mr. Griffin, did you seize that or collect that item as a piece of evidence?
I did, sir.
First witness, sir. Mr. Griffin, I'm showing you a sealed item. I'd ask you if you recognize the envelope contained in the sealed item.
That is cone number 8, collected by me.
And you recognize the handwriting on that,
I
sir?
do, it is mine.
And when you collected that item, did you place it into the evidence envelope similar to what you did with the prior exhibits I showed you?
Yes.
And did you, once again, as you previously testified, enter that item into the Boston Police Department evidence management system and assign it a barcode and barcode number?
Yes.
And similarly, did you submit this item of evidence to the Boston Police Department Firearms Analysis Unit?
I did.
Your Honor, for the sealed envelope with item number 8 as the next number exhibit.
Any objection? Without objection, thank you. Exhibit 172.
I'm sorry, Mr. Griffin, one other photograph. Did you measure that item?
Not measured per se. We used the ruler to show what is not commonly known, its size.
First witness, Your Honor. You may. Last photograph, Mr. Griffin. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And is that a close-up photograph of item number 8, but this time with a measuring device, a ruler placed next to it?
Correct.
Your Honor, for the zoomed-in photograph of the ruler is the next number exhibit.
Counsel without objection?
No, sir.
Thank you. 73.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I have no further questions.
Mr. Griffin, I'm going to send you back to your retired life real soon, okay?
Thank you, sir.
I just have a couple of questions. These items of evidence, it's important to keep a chain of custody, right?
Correct.
And this is so that you ensure that there's no tampering with evidence while in police custody.
Correct.
And
Objection to tampering.
Well, the witness has answered the question. Overruled.
And these items are always kept in these, specifically these items like projectiles. They're always kept in.
I couldn't testify to that. That's what we place them in, where they go from there.
And the reason you place them in paper is so that there's no type of degradation, correct?
That would be correct, sir, yes.
And I guess in layman's terms, that means degrading of evidence, right?
More for biological hazards, but I wouldn't go so far for ammunition, but yeah, I suppose you could say that, yes.
Okay. And the chain of custody is always a critical thing whenever handling evidence.
I would say yes.
Whenever you receive an item, the police receive an item of evidence, chain of custody is to begin.
Yes.
And that responsibility is forever. Through the life of the case. Well, let me rephrase that. Through the time that it's in police custody.
I guess so, yes.
Okay. And the last question I have for you is, I noticed when Mr. Hagan showed you this photograph, you gave a slight grin.
I didn't take that photo.
That's correct. That's because the media took it, right?
That is correct.
I have no further questions.
Anything else?
Just one question. Mr. Griffin, I thought I heard when Mr. Byers was asking you a question, you said something about, well, not so much for ballistic evidence, and relation to contamination or degradation. What did you mean by that?
Well, when we do RBS swab kits in the street, or we take victims' clothing or something that's saturated with a liquid, if you put it in anything other than paper, it will immediately start to decay and mold will begin. So we try to wrap everything in paper and let the labs do what they need to do after we send it up to them.
Okay, but that's more for clothing and that type of thing. Less
Biological liquids.
Okay. Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Blood on a bullet's biological liquid?
Could be. But, you know, as I testified, everything we do is put in paper.
Right, but you would agree blood on a bullet is biological?
Absolutely.
No further questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Brian Quon.
For the heads officer.
Stand here, face the clerk, raise your right hand. Sir, do you solemnly swear that testimony you should give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yeah. Thank you, sir. Can I call the officer? Thanks,
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the court report?
Brian K. Quon. Quon.
How old are you, sir?
I am 53 this year.
Are you currently employed or going to school?
Currently not employed.
What was your most recent employment, sir?
As a security manager.
What is your educational background?
Associate arts degree.
So I'm calling attention now to your time as a security consultant. How long were you a security consultant?
A little bit over 10 years.
And at some point, did you find yourself working in the Boston area, performing security duties for various clubs in and around the theater district of Boston?
Yes, I did.
What years did you do that, if you can recall?
2005 till 2015. Yeah.
So in 2012, is it fair to state that you were working security for various clubs that summer in the Boston area, the theater district?
Yes, I was.
And calling your attention out to a particular club being Underbar, did you work there, sir?
Yes, I did.
How long did you work there?
At that point in time, probably 5 years.
I'm calling attention now, Mr. Kwan, to a particular night, it being a Sunday night leading into Monday. It would be July 15th leading into July 16th, the year 2012. Were you working that night, sir?
Yes, I was.
Where were you working?
I was working at Underbar 279 Tremont Street.
And if you would, sir, with the diagram to your left that's been entered as exhibit number 4, and there's a pointer in front of you, I believe, that extends.
Okay.
Can you show the jurors in the court approximately where Underbar is on number 4, this being Cure, venue and rumor being across the, kind of diagonally across the way over on Warrington Street. Can you tell us where Underbar is located?
So it would be located right here.
Just slightly down towards the Mass Pike from Cure, but on the opposite side, is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's about 2 blocks of the Mass Pike.
And is it diagonally across the street from Club Cure, sir?
Well, not exactly diagonal, but yeah, about a block off.
About a block off?
Yeah, half block off.
But across the street?
Yeah, it's across the street.
And this Sunday night leading into Monday, were you working with anyone who was close to you?
I was working with my partner.
Who was that?
Donald J. Gobin.
Where were the two of you living at the time, in what state?
Rhode Island, North Providence, Rhode Island.
And you would drive up for the nights you had to both work together at Club Underbar?
Correct.
And that night at Underbar, sir, leading into the early morning hours of Monday, July 16th, did anything of note happen while you were working in the club itself? Was it a busy night or a quiet night?
No, actually, it was a very quiet night.
Now, you indicated you were working security. Was that at the front door or somewhere else?
I would alternate between the front door and downstairs throughout the night.
Now, at that point, sir, were you a football fan?
No,
Did you even know who Aaron Hernandez was as of July 16, 2012?
I had no idea. Didn't even know what the Patriots were. I'm not from here, so
Are you originally from another state?
I'm from California.
But you had lived in Rhode Island for some period of time, is that correct?
At that point in time, I had lived here for 10 years, yes.
So, sir, I'm calling your attention now to about 2:30 in the morning when the club closed. What did you do after the club closed?
After the club closed, we would usually wait for our boss, which we did that night, to walk him to his vehicle. And that night we left the club around 2:22, 2:25, which is around the same time we do all the time, and walked him across the street, still on Tremont.
Why do you walk him across the street? Is he
That's where
holding
his
something?
vehicle is parked. And so he carries the money for the evening with him. So he requests that we walk him to his vehicle. That night his vehicle was parked across the street.
On Tremont Street?
Yes, it was.
And after you walked him to his vehicle, did you have your partner, Donald Gobin, with you as well?
Yes, I did.
What happened after you walked him to his vehicle?
We proceeded to walk towards our vehicle, which was 2 blocks down.
Do you recall what you were wearing that night? Was there some type of uniform as a security officer?
Yeah, we always wear all black, and at that period of time, during the summer, we wore short sleeve black shirts, a black pair of pants.
Now you indicated that your car was parked about 2 or so blocks away.
Right.
Where was your car parked?
Right before.
If this is Marginal Street going over the
Right.
Mass Pike, right here,
Yeah, that's marginal. We're right here at this corner.
you're parked at the
On
private
Tremont. Yep.
on Tremont Street,
Yeah.
and were you parked on the left-hand side or the right-hand side?
On the left-hand side.
What kind of car were you in that night?
It was a silver Saturn LS 300. It's a 4-door.
Now, sir, prior to testifying here today, did you have an opportunity to view some video that was purportedly taken from the Tufts Medical Center garage looking down on Tremont Street?
I did.
I'm going to show you a small clip from what has been entered as exhibit number 29. First, to give the jurors some perspective, sir, you recognize what's depicted in this still photograph, is
Yeah,
that
that's
correct?
Tremont Street.
This is Tremont Street here.
The opposite side of where the club I worked at.
And is it fair to state that the club would be over off in this direction beyond where the camera covers?
Yeah, a little bit closer to where that car is parked. That silver car.
This car here?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where Underbar is in that direction?
That's the entrance to Underbar, yes.
And this area here is the Tufts Medical
Yeah,
Center
that's the
garage.
hospital, correct.
I'm just going to play the video.
That's us.
Stopping the video now, and for the record, again, it's exhibit number 27. The time listed is 2:24:01. Floating Plaza is the name of the camera. The two individuals that we see walking, both wearing black pants, black shirts, one appearing to be bald-headed, the other having dark hair. Do you recognize those two people?
Yes, person on the left is me, and the other person on the right is my partner, Donald.
And this is at what we see here on the video, Mr. Quon. Is this after you've now walked your boss to his car and you're now walking down the street towards where your car is parked up here?
Yes.
Now, as you're walking here, Mr. Quon, did you notice the two people waiting here on the corner at all?
Did not. I did not. And that's a little bit over from where the parking garage entrance and exit is.
The entrance to the parking garage?
Yeah.
Just stopping at 22408. Did you notice the two individuals that appear to now be entering the parking garage? One appears to be with a yellow shirt, one with a gray shirt.
No, it did not.
Again, sir, just to clarify, as of 2012, you did not know who Aaron Hernandez was. You wouldn't recognize him if you saw him?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
And it looks like you may have stopped there and briefly shook someone's hand or something. Do you know what that was about?
It probably was a customer from the club that night. So I was just telling them not to hang around on the street. Usually that's our job at the end of the night, to disperse the crowd off the street. So.
And how would you describe the night at this point, sir, as you and your partner are walking back to your car? Was it busy or quiet? A lot of people out or not a lot of people out?
Well, as we walked further down the street, it became extremely quiet, actually. There was no more traffic, no people around us. This is highly unusual to see that's many people, but
so when you got
by the time we got to our vehicle, there was no one in the street, and there was no vehicles anywhere. We actually said we thought it was kind of strange that there wasn't any noise. You could hear, it was pretty silent.
So when you got to the car, did you get in the passenger seat or the driver's seat?
I entered on the passenger side, yes, and Donald was the driver.
Did you pull out of the parking spot?
We were parked 2 spots back from that edge. Actually, it's right over here, this corner. So there was no vehicle in front of us. So he just pretty much coasted up to the light, and at that point in time, the light was red.
And just to clarify, sir, is this at the intersection of Marginal Street before you get to the bridge?
Yes, it was.
Here?
Yes.
And you said you just pulled up, so you're at the stoplight here on Marginal as it intersects with Shawmut?
Correct.
So you're directly in front of the bridge that goes over the Mass Pike?
Yes, that's Shawmut, right. Yep, goes over the Mass Pike. Correct.
When you pulled up to the light, or I should say when Donald pulled up to the light, did something happen?
Yes.
What happened?
Not more than 20 seconds later, a silver grayish SUV pulled up extremely close to us. And
When you say extremely close, how close?
I would say like from like about 2 feet, at least 2 feet. It was pretty close.
2 feet?
Because I thought it was strange that a vehicle would pull up so close that I looked up, thinking it was someone we knew, which is not unusual for that to happen.
When you looked, you were in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
When you turned to your right and looked up, what did you see?
Saw an African or Latino gentleman, short cropped hair, no facial hair, looking down into our vehicle.
Looking down into your vehicle?
Yeah, looking down into our vehicle. And I looked back up. And
Was the light red at this point?
the light was still red. And then
What happened next?
he gunned his vehicle and ran the red light. And we're like, what was that about?
Went right through the red light.
Exactly, went right through the red light. Because we were still sitting there waiting. Donald made a comment, and he said, of course, he's from Rhode Island.
He said a comment, of course, is from Rhode Island?
Yeah, he said, of course, he's from Rhode Island.
And was
I
that,
said, I said to him, how do you know? Because look at the license plate.
And
I
did
said, and then we just laughed. We laughed because that happens often in Rhode Island.
And when the two of you looked up at the license plate, it was a Rhode Island license plate?
Yes, it was.
And what did you see happen after that car sped through the intersection as you described, went through the red light? What happened next?
Well, the next thing I heard was bam, 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 bam. And I said to Donald, that sounds like gunshots. He goes, yes, it is. He goes, where did that come from? I said, right in front of us.
What did you see in front of you?
Right in front of us was another silver vehicle parked in, stopped at the stoplight on the next lot, right before, on Harold, and, yeah.
They were stopped at the stoplight at the next intersection?
Yeah.
I've placed on the screen exhibit number 62, photograph number 8. Does that photograph look familiar to you?
Yes.
And is that the approximate position where the vehicle you described was stopped?
Yes.
Where did you see the silver SUV go in relation to that vehicle when you heard the shots?
As we heard the shot, I looked forward because that's where the noise was coming from, and I saw the SUV turning to the left.
To the left, down Harold Street towards I-93?
Correct.
So that would be in this direction here?
Yes.
And you indicated that you heard a number of shots, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know how many shots you heard?
The first 3 were like bam, 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 and the last were very fast, bam, bam, bam.
And you, after hearing those shots, did you proceed forward towards that car that we see on the exhibit in front of you?
We did, slowly, cautiously. And
Did you see glass?
as we approached closer, we did see glass, and I pointed that out to Donald. And he goes, I said, I think that car was just shot out.
What happened next?
And he says, how do you know? I said, look at the glass around it.
Now, at this point, let me stop you there, Mr. Quon. I'm sorry. Were there any other cars around?
Not one car, not one person in the street, nothing.
So other than the silver SUV that you just described for the jurors, was there any car in between you and this BMW that we see on the screen?
No.
Did you see any street sweepers?
No street sweepers.
Did you see any taxi cabs or any other cars on that street?
Nothing at that time.
It was just your car, the BMW, and the silver SUV with Rhode Island plates?
Exactly, which I already turned down the left side.
So you were the first people to get to that car after the sound of those gunshots?
Exactly.
Sustained. What a question.
Please tell us what happened as you got closer to the car.
As we got closer, Donald pulled up behind him thinking that the car was going to move forward because then he was thinking, well, let's just stop there. The light turns green, still stop there. I told him, just go around him. Don't wait.
What happened when you went around?
As we went around slowly, we pulled up next to the vehicle again, probably
On which side? This side?
on the right-hand side, passenger side, and we pulled up directly across from the passenger window and driver's side.
How close were you to the passenger window?
Probably about 3 feet.
Did you look into the passenger window?
We did.
What did you see?
In the passenger side, African-American gentleman that was appeared to be dead. Was shot. You could see that he was been shot. Because it was all bloody on his shirt in the front. The driver was just taking his last breath, and you could tell that.
How
He
could
had his
you tell?
head back, and his eyes were rolling back into his head, rolling back, and he had laborious breathing.
You could see him breathing, though?
Yes, still breathing, but then it stopped, and that happened was only about a minute. Within a
And
minute.
you were stopped.
We were stopped, exactly.
Now, you say that the passenger was dead.
He was dead already.
How could you tell?
There was no movement. His head was back, and there just wasn't moving. You could tell that the driver was still alive because he was breathing, and it was hard for him to breathe, and then it just stopped.
And did you see the gunshot wounds?
For the passenger, yes. The driver, no.
Did you see where the gunshot wounds were in the passenger?
What we saw was in the chest area right here.
What
And it was
happened?
dark. And the vehicle was dark as well. So
What happened next?
Well,
Did you
we
see
had to
anybody
make
else in
a-
that car?
Was that again?
Did you see anybody else in the car? Did anybody
At that point in time, we didn't think there was anyone in that car until another African American gentleman jumped out from the passenger side, and then another individual came out from the driver's side.
So the first
And they-
individual came out from this side here,
Yes,
or actually
exactly.
this side here, and then the other came out from this side.
Exactly.
Both African American males.
Exactly. Yes.
What happened next?
They came out patting themselves and looking for.
What do you mean by patting themselves?
Well,
Can you-
they
can you
came out
demonstrate?
and they were looking at themselves and patting themselves, like perhaps from the glass or from bullets. I have no idea.
They got up and patted themselves.
But they were patting, like brushing themselves off and looking at what. And then when the gentleman that came out from the passenger side started to walk towards our vehicle, he wasn't saying anything. The other gentleman started to walk down the street,
Which direction?
down towards the club direction.
This direction here?
Yes. Yeah. And he started to wave down vehicles which were now coming down the street at that point.
Cars
in time.
started to come down.
Yeah, cars were starting to come down now.
And he appeared to be waving them down for help.
Yes.
The person who was approaching your car, was he seeking help too or saying anything?
He didn't say anything. He was just yelling,
Could you tell what he was
and I
saying?
couldn't. I couldn't understand what he was saying.
What happened next, sir?
The next thing we did was I told my partner we needed to move on because I had no idea what their intentions were. I had no idea if the gray silver SUV was going to come back around as well.
So did you leave the scene?
We did.
And after leaving, were you present when Donald, your partner, called 911?
I was.
And did, to the best of your knowledge, did Donald provide a description of that vehicle that you had seen, the silver SUV with the Rhode Island plates?
Yes, he did.
Mr. Quon, I'm going to place on the screen what's been entered as exhibit number 35. Does that vehicle appear to be consistent with the vehicle that you saw on July 16th, the year 2012, that pulled alongside your car and then sped off before you heard those shots?
It's similar, yes.
After Donald called 911, did the police call Donald back and speak to him on his cell phone, if you recall?
I believe so. And then they called again when we came home, when we got to our home.
And about 3 days later, on July 19th, 2012, did you and your partner Donald come to the Boston Police Department headquarters to provide a tape-recorded statement?
Yes, we did.
Mr. Kwan, calling your attention back to when that SUV first pulled up closely, you indicated that the driver appeared to be either African American or Latino.
Yes.
So his skin tone was what, if you could tell?
A light brown. It's difficult. It's difficult to subjective for colors.
But you thought it was either a
It was
light-skinned,
very light skin.
either light-skinned black male or Hispanic.
Yes.
Could you tell whether or not anybody else was in the car?
I saw the outline of a person in the passenger seat, but
Could you tell whether that person was a man or a woman or
no, I
the race?
could not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwan. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Hold on one second, sir.
Oh.
Don't go.
Sorry.
Nice try, though. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Quon, we won't keep you here too long. Sorry to hold you. So, but you've worked in You worked in security,
Yes, I did.
and specifically you worked at Club Underbar.
Not specifically, but I worked a lot. I worked at many clubs at that time.
And one of the clubs was Club Underbar.
Yes.
And you said you worked in the security industry for 10 years?
About 10 years, yes.
Now, as a security professional, one of the things you do is keep an eye on the patrons in whatever place where you're a security professional.
Correct.
You make sure people stay safe.
We try to, yes.
You keep an eye on, and sometimes you may even have to ask troublemakers to leave.
We do.
It's fair to say that observation is an important skill that one has as a security professional.
It should be, but not always necessary.
Well, you observe people in
I
clubs,
do.
right?
I do.
And you observe their interactions.
At times, yes.
This observation is among the things that you do every day as a security personnel. You do other things, but that's one of the things you do. Is you
Yeah,
observe
that's one of the things, yes.
And that's an important skill for a good security professional, right?
That's the key word, good security person.
And you were good.
I would think I would be in certain aspects of security.
Now,
Yes.
I'm going to draw your attention to July 15th and July 16th, the night that Mr. Hagan spoke about. So I'm just going to take you through that night very briefly. So you left work, right?
Exactly, yes.
And you were riding with went to the car with your partner.
Correct.
He got in the driver's seat.
Yes.
You got in the passenger seat.
Yes.
You pulled out on the Tremont.
Yes.
You guys were going to be heading back to Rhode Island.
Correct.
And while you were sitting on the passenger seat after you pulled out, that's when the SUV came very close to you.
Excuse me, Mr. Sullivan, how long will you be? I don't mean to cut you short at all, but more than 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a brief recess. Jurors may be excused. Mr. Baez, you may have had some monitoring of the CD. Can you inform me of anything?
Yes, sir. I just received a text that there was a reflection of a photo monitor. I'm not sure if it matters, but we can see the jury's faces through the reflection of the photo monitor very clearly.
All right. Sir, I'm going to order the camera be turned off, disabled.